Sometimes in the West, we think we have it all figured out. You know, we come to the Bible with our Western perspective and mindset, and we fail to take the Bible at its cultural value. And instead of allowing the culture of the Bible to speak to us, we try to take our culture and kind of force it onto the Bible. I want to give you an example of this as we come into this, the Feast of Trumpets, the high holy days, the most sacred time in the biblical calendar. And today it's called Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. It's the first day of the civil calendar. But in the times of the Bible, it was simply called the Feast of Trumpets. And there were some traditions that were associated with the Feast of Trumpets that gets picked up on later by the Apostle Paul and some of the others. And a lot of times we think that Paul and Peter and James are given us Christian theology. You have to understand, Christianity did not yet exist. These guys were Jews. They were preaching to Jews, and it was Jewish theology that later became accepted by the church and became what we would call Christian. Let me give you an example of this as we talk about this, the Feast of Trumpets. There was a belief system in place at that time at the Second Temple when Jesus lived, and it was this, that on one day, on the Feast of Trumpets, which is the first day of the month Tishri, the 7th month in the biblical calendar, that a great trumpet would sound, and that all those who were faithful, all those who followed God, when they heard that trumpet sound, listen to this, that they would be raised to life, and if they were alive, they would be raised before the presence of God, and there they would have to stand before Him and give an account of their actions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey, that sounds really familiar. That's in the Bible. Yes, it's in the Bible, but it didn't come from a Christian background. This was already in Jewish theology. This idea of a trumpet being connected to the raising of the dead became so popular that you can even see in cemeteries, in Jewish cemeteries, instead of a Star of David or Hebraic writing, you'll see there a shofar to remind them that one day there will be a great trumpet call. And all those who hear that call are going to be raised to life, are going to stand before God to give an account for their actions. I mean, guys, look in 1 Corinthians 15, 51 and 52. This is what Paul is saying there. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, or at the last shofar. For the shofar shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. And so here's one of these prime examples in the New Testament of how Jewish theology became the basis for what we as Christians believe today. We need to understand, guys, that we are the ones who have the privilege of being grafted in to the olive tree. And if you know how a tree works, the stump or the trunk doesn't need the branches to survive, but the branches need the trunk. They need the tree to survive. And we've been grafted into that olive tree. So what that means is as we're grafted in, we're being nourished from those Hebraic roots. The more we study the past, the more we study about what life was like in the time of Jesus, the more we learn about His culture, the more we learn about Him. And the more we learn about Him, the more we can become like Him. And that's why we're here today. We're not here to take you back into the Old Testament. We're not here to take you back into the old times. But we're simply here to present to you the richness and all the beauty that the Hebraic roots have to offer us. And the closer and deeper we get into our roots, the more we become connected to the biblical Jesus. I'm Joe Amaral.